How to win in life when you have no support. Let me begin this way. There are some people who start life with a cheering crowd, applause on both sides, encouragement behind them, and opportunities waiting ahead of them. And then there are others who must walk their path in silence with no one checking in, no one clapping, no one pushing them forward. If you find yourself in that second group, you might wonder if winning is even possible. Now here's the truth. Winning is still possible, and sometimes that's exactly how real winners are made. Think about that for a moment. I used to wonder why some people had such an advantage, and I would quietly wish I had what they had. I used to say, if I just had the right support, I would do better, I would go further, I would become more. But one day I realized something that changed everything for me. It's not what happens that determines your future, it's what you do about what happens. And sometimes the greatest gift life gives you is the absence of support, because it forces you to look within. When no one is there to push you, you must learn to push yourself. Now here's the next part. If you are going to win without support, you must develop your own personal philosophy. Your philosophy is how you see the world, how you interpret events, and how you respond when things don't go your way. Two people can face the same difficulty. One becomes bitter while the other becomes better. The difference is not in the situation, the difference is in their philosophy. Think about that for a moment. Life is not designed to be easy. Life is designed to test you, stretch you, and refine you into something greater. If you don't develop a strong philosophy, every challenge will feel like an attack against you. But if you do develop one, every challenge becomes an opportunity to grow stronger and wiser. I used to complain about how hard things were until I learned that difficulty is part of the process. You don't curse the winter, you prepare for it. And when you understand that, your whole mindset begins to shift. Let me tell you a little story. I used to have very little direction and even less encouragement, and I spent a lot of time blaming that. I would say if someone would just believe in me, things would be different for me. But then I discovered something powerful. The problem wasn't what I didn't have. The problem was what I had not yet become. That realization was not easy, but it was necessary. Because once you accept responsibility, you gain power. You can't control the wind, but you can control the sail, and that makes all the difference. If the wind is against you, you don't sit there complaining, you adjust your sail and keep moving forward. If no one is encouraging you, you must learn to encourage yourself daily. If no one is investing in you, you must become your own greatest investment. Now think about that for a moment, because most people are waiting when they should be acting. And life rewards action, not waiting. Now let's talk about something that will carry you through difficult times, the law of seasons. Life comes in seasons, just like nature does, and each season has its purpose. There is the winter season when things feel hard, cold, and uncertain. There is the spring season when things begin to grow and new opportunities appear. There is the summer season when you must protect what you are building. And then there is the fall where you harvest the results of your labor. If you are in a winter season right now with no support and no visible progress, don't panic. Winter is not permanent and it never lasts forever, no matter how long it feels. But here is what you must understand. You don't wish for an easier winter, you wish for more strength. Because winter teaches you discipline, patience, and endurance like nothing else can. Those lessons are far more valuable than temporary comfort. Think about that for a moment. Now here's the next part. Discipline. You cannot win in life without support if you don't have discipline working for you every single day. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, and without it, goals remain wishes. I used to wait until I felt motivated before taking action, and that kept me stuck for a long time. But then I learned that motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the wind. Discipline, on the other hand, stays with you when you commit to it. If no one is pushing you, you must become the one who pushes yourself forward. If no one is watching, you must still show up and do the work as if the whole world is watching. If no one is rewarding you, you must still keep going because you understand the long-term reward. That is how winners are made, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet moments of consistency. It's what you do daily that shapes your destiny. Think about that. Let me tell you another story. I once met someone who said, "Nobody believes in me," and you could hear the frustration in his voice. So I asked him a simple question, "Do you believe in yourself?" He paused, and that pause said everything that needed to be said. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no amount of external support will ever be enough. But if you do believe in yourself, even a lack of support cannot stop you. Now, here's something powerful you must remember. Work harder on yourself, because working on yourself builds your future. If you read more, you grow more, and if you grow more, you can earn more. Self-education does not require support, it only requires a decision. You don't need permission to improve your life, and you don't need approval to become better. It all begins with you. Now let's talk about character. Character is what you do when no one is watching, and especially when no one is supporting you. It is easy to stay disciplined when people are cheering you on, but what about when it's just you and your thoughts? That is where true character is built, in those quiet, unseen moments. Success is not something you chase, it is something you attract by the person you become. So if you want better results, become better. Let me tell you a simple story about a man who planted seeds but never took care of them. He expected growth, but he refused to water what he planted, and then he complained about the results. Sometimes we do the same thing in our own lives, expecting results without putting in the effort. Especially when we feel unsupported, we lose motivation to act. But results are not tied to support, they are tied to action. Now here's the next part. Goals. You must have goals if you want to take control of your life and move forward with purpose. Without goals, life becomes reactive and you simply respond to whatever comes your way. But with clear goals, you begin to design your life intentionally. Set goals that stretch you and force you to grow beyond your current limits. Because the real value of a goal is not just achieving it, but who you become in the process. There will be days when you feel like quitting, and those days will test your commitment. There will be moments when nothing seems to be working and doubt begins to creep in. In those moments, you must remind yourself why you started in the first place. Your reason must be stronger than your excuses, because when support is absent, your reason becomes your fuel. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes the lack of support is actually a blessing in disguise. It forces you to become strong, to think independently, and to rely on your own growth. And when you finally succeed, you will know that it was not luck or connections that brought you there. It was your discipline, your mindset, and your persistence. That kind of confidence is different. It is deep and unshakable. It stays with you for life. Winning in life without support is not easy, but it is absolutely possible if you commit to growth. It requires discipline when you don't feel like it, action when no one is watching, and belief when no one else believes. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can every single day. Over time, those small efforts will compound into something powerful. And one day, the results will speak louder than any support ever could. Now let me leave you with this. It's not about the wind that comes your way, whether it is favorable or difficult. It is about how you set your sail in response to that wind. If you learn to adjust, to grow, and to stay consistent, you can go anywhere you choose. So don't wait for support. Become your own support system. There is something else you must understand if you are going to win in life without support. It is this simple idea: your environment does not have to define you, but it will try. If you are surrounded by doubt, negativity, or indifference, it will slowly start to influence your thinking if you are not careful. I used to think my environment had full control over my results until I learned that I could create a new environment in my mind. Books became my mentors, ideas became my companions, and discipline became my protection. Think about that for a moment. Now here's the next part. You must learn how to talk to yourself, because when no one is speaking life into you, your inner voice becomes everything. Some people wake up and immediately start doubting themselves, criticizing themselves, and replaying their failures. And then they wonder why they don't have the energy to move forward. But winners, even when alone, develop the habit of self-encouragement. They say, I may not be where I want to be, but I am not where I used to be, and I am moving forward. That kind of conversation builds strength over time. Let me tell you a little story. I once knew someone who had all the support in the world, people cheering, people helping, people guiding him, but he lacked discipline, and slowly he lost everything that support gave him. Then I met another person who had nothing, no help, no encouragement, no connections, but he was disciplined every single day. Over time, he built something strong, something lasting, something undeniable. You won't believe what happened next. People started supporting him after he had already proven himself. Support often follows progress, not the other way around. Now think about that carefully. Many people are waiting for support before they begin, but life often works in reverse. You begin, you struggle, you grow, and then support shows up when your results become visible. That means you cannot afford to wait, because waiting keeps you stuck. Action, even imperfect action, creates movement, and movement creates opportunity. Now here's something else that will help you. You must learn to protect your energy, especially when you don't have support. Because without support, your energy becomes your most valuable resource. Where you focus your attention, what you listen to, what you watch, and what you think about daily, all of it matters. I used to spend time on things that drained me, and I didn't realize how much it was slowing me down, until I learned to be selective, and that changed everything. Let's go a little deeper. Winning without support requires vision, because vision gives you direction when there is no guidance. If you don't know where you are going, every obstacle will feel like a dead end. But when you have a clear vision, obstacles become part of the journey, not the end of it. You begin to see challenges as necessary, not personal. And that shift alone can keep you moving forward when others would stop. Now here's the next part. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. Because when you don't have support, people will question your choices. They will not see what you see, and they may not believe what you believe. I used to try to explain myself to everyone, hoping they would understand my vision. But then I realized something powerful. Not everyone needs to understand, and not everyone will. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to stay committed. Think about that for a moment. Every great journey begins with uncertainty, and most people cannot support what they do not understand. That is why you must develop internal clarity, because external validation may not come early, and if you depend on it, you will lose momentum. But if you stay focused, your results will eventually speak for you. Now let me tell you something important about patience. When you have no support, progress may feel slower, and that can be frustrating. You might look around and see others moving faster, achieving more, and getting recognition, and you may ask yourself, am I falling behind? But here's the truth, your journey is not meant to look like theirs. Your pace is part of your process. I used to compare my progress with others, and it discouraged me more than it helped me, until I learned that comparison steals focus, and focus is too valuable to lose. When you focus on your own path, you begin to notice your growth. Small improvements, small wins, small steps forward, they start to add up. And over time, those small things become something big. Now here's the next part. You must learn to celebrate small wins, especially when no one else is celebrating you. Because if you don't recognize your progress, you will feel like you are standing still. I used to wait for big achievements before I felt proud, but that made the journey feel long and empty. Then I started appreciating the small steps. Showing up, staying consistent, improving little by little, and that made the journey meaningful. Let me ask you something. If you keep showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, even when no one is supporting you, what do you think will happen over time? You will grow, you will improve, and you will build something that cannot be easily taken away. That is the power of consistency. It works quietly, but it works powerfully. Now here's something else to think about. The person you are becoming during this season of no support is preparing you for the season of influence. Because when success comes, and it will come if you stay consistent, you will need the strength to handle it. You will need discipline to sustain it, and character to manage it. And those qualities are built in the quiet seasons, not the loud ones. So don't rush the process, don't resent the silence, don't complain about the lack of support. Instead, use it. Use this time to grow, to learn, to build, and to prepare. Because one day when everything starts to come together, you will look back and realize that this season shaped you. Now pause for a moment and think about your own life. Where are you right now? What season are you in? What habits are you building? What thoughts are you entertaining? Because those things are quietly shaping your future. And here's the truth. You don't need support to start changing your life. You just need a decision to grow, a decision to act, and a decision to stay consistent no matter what. That decision, repeated daily, becomes your transformation. Furthermore, let's go deeper, because if you don't understand why support is missing, you will misinterpret your entire journey, And when you misinterpret your journey, you will react wrongly. You will either slow down, shrink back, or start seeking validation from places that were never designed to affirm you. So let me ask you something again, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever felt like the people closest to you are the ones who believe in you the least? Not because they hate you, but because they simply don't see you. This is one of the most painful realities of growth. Because naturally you expect that the people around you, your family, your friends, your environment should be your first supporters. You expect them to understand your vision, to celebrate your steps, to encourage your efforts. But instead you are met with silence, doubt, or even subtle discouragement. And if you are not careful, self-pity will begin to grow. You will start asking questions like, what is wrong with me? Why can't they see what I see? Why does it feel like I am doing this alone? But here is the truth that will set you free. People don't support what they don't understand. It's not always hatred. It's not always jealousy. Sometimes it is simply limitation. They can only respond to you based on the level of their perception. If they have never seen what you are trying to become, they will struggle to believe it is possible. If they have never experienced your kind of vision, they will interpret it as unrealistic. And this is where many destinies are quietly buried, not because God did not speak, but because people listened more to misunderstanding than to conviction. You must realize this. Understanding creates support, but lack of understanding creates distance. And there are people in your life who genuinely care about you, but they don't understand you. So instead of supporting you, they question you. Instead of encouraging you, they advise you to play safe. Not because they want you to fail, but because they cannot see what God showed you. Now listen carefully, because this next truth is even deeper. Familiarity often blinds people to your greatness. The people who have known you for years have a fixed image of you in their minds. They remember who you were, not who you are becoming. They remember your past, not your potential. So when you begin to rise, when you begin to think differently, when you begin to step into something greater, it creates a conflict in their minds because your growth is challenging their perception. And instead of adjusting their perception, they try to pull you back into what feels familiar to them. This is not new, this is biblical. In Mark chapter 6, verse 4, Jesus himself said, "A prophet is without honor in his own country." Think about that. Jesus, the Son of God, stood among people who knew him, and they struggled to honor him, not because he lacked power, but because they were too familiar with his background. They said, "Is this not the carpenter? Is this not Mary's son?" In other words, we know where you come from, so how can you be this great? Do you see that? Their familiarity became a barrier to their recognition. And that is exactly what happens to many people. The environment that watched you grow is often the environment that struggles to accept your transformation. So when support is missing, it does not always mean you are in the wrong place. It may mean you are outgrowing the perception people have of you. Now let me take you even deeper. Sometimes it is not just people. Sometimes God himself allows this lack of support. And this is where it becomes spiritual. Because there are seasons where God will intentionally hide you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. There are things God wants to build in you that cannot be developed in the presence of constant validation. There are depths of strength, clarity, and dependence on him that only grow when external support is removed. If everyone was cheering for you too early, you might depend on their voices instead of God's voice. If everyone was validating you too quickly, you might lose the hunger to seek divine direction. So what does God do? He allows a season where it feels like you are alone, so you can discover that you are not actually alone. Because in that hidden place, something powerful is happening. Your character is being shaped. Your understanding is being sharpened. Your connection with God is being strengthened. And while people are overlooking you, God is working on you. Let me give you a real-life perspective. Many people you admire today, many people you celebrate today, were once ignored. Not noticed, not supported, not recognized. Before the spotlight, there was obscurity. Before recognition, there was rejection. Before people started saying, "We always knew," there was a long season where nobody believed. And if those individuals had allowed lack of support to stop them, you would never hear their names today. So the question is not, why is support missing? The real question is, what am I going to do in this season where support is missing? Will you sit in self-pity, or will you rise in understanding? Will you reduce your vision, or will you protect it? Will you wait for people to believe, or will you move forward with what God has already shown you? An effort doesn't seem to produce results. I used to think those moments meant I was on the wrong path. But then I realized something important. Difficulty is not a sign to stop. It is a sign to grow. Let me tell you a little story. I once tried to build something that didn't work the first time, and honestly, it was discouraging. I thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just settle. But something inside me said, try again, but this time try wiser. So I adjusted my approach, improved my discipline, and stayed consistent. You won't believe what happened next. The second attempt worked, not because the situation changed, but because I had changed. Think about that. Now here's something powerful. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Especially when you don't have support. Failure becomes your teacher. It shows you what doesn't work. It reveals your weaknesses and it pushes you to improve. But only if you are willing to learn from it. If you take failure personally, it will stop you, but if you take it as feedback, it will guide you. Now let's go a little deeper. You must also learn the art of self-leadership. When there is no one guiding you, you become the leader of your own life. That means you decide when to wake up, when to work, when to rest, and how to respond to challenges. I used to wait for structure from outside, but when it wasn't there, I felt lost. Then I realized something. Structure is something you can create for yourself. And once I did that, everything started to change. Think about that for a moment. What time do you wake up? What do you do with your first hour? How do you spend your day? These small decisions are shaping your future, whether you realize it or not. Without support, your routines become your foundation. And strong routines lead to strong results. Now here's the next part. You must become emotionally strong because the journey will test your patience, your confidence, and your belief in yourself. There will be days when you feel invisible, like no one sees your effort or understands your struggle. And in those moments, it is easy to feel discouraged. I used to let those feelings slow me down until I learned to manage them instead of being controlled by them. Let me ask you something. Do you control your emotions or do your emotions control you? Because if your emotions control you, your progress will always be inconsistent. But if you learn to manage them, you can keep moving forward no matter how you feel. That is a powerful skill, especially when you are walking alone. Now here's something else. You must learn to delay gratification because success rarely comes immediately. When you have no support, the rewards may take longer to appear, and that can be frustrating. I used to want quick results, quick progress, quick recognition, but life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you must put in the work long before you see the reward. Think about planting a seed. You don't plant it today and expect fruit tomorrow. You plant it, you water it, you protect it, and you wait. That waiting period is where most people quit, especially when they feel unsupported. But those who stay consistent during that period are the ones who eventually succeed. Now let's go a little deeper into something important, your circle. Even if you don't have physical support, you can still build a mental circle of influence. Through books, audio, learning, and personal development, you can surround yourself with powerful ideas. I used to think I needed people physically present to grow, but then I discovered that ideas can guide you just as strongly, and sometimes even better. Now here's the next part. As you grow, something interesting will begin to happen. You will start to outgrow certain environments, conversations, and habits. Things that once felt normal will begin to feel limiting, and that can feel lonely, especially when you already lack support. But that is part of growth, not something to fear. Think about that for a moment. Growth requires separation, and separation often feels like isolation. But it is temporary, and it is necessary. Because you cannot become something new while staying in the same patterns. So if you feel like you are outgrowing your surroundings, don't panic. It means you are evolving. Now here's something powerful to remember. The life you want requires a version of you that you have not yet fully become. That means there is work to do, habits to build, and mindset shifts to make. And the good news is you can start that process right now, regardless of who is supporting you, because your growth is in your control. Let me tell you something else. When you finally start seeing results, when your efforts begin to pay off, People will begin to notice. And some of those same people who didn't support you in the beginning will show up later. Now here's the key. Don't let that change your focus. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, and stay committed to your growth. Because the goal is not just to succeed, the goal is to become someone who can sustain that success. And that requires continuous growth, not temporary effort. Think about that. Now we're getting to a deeper level of understanding. Winning without support is not about proving others wrong. It is about proving yourself right. It is about showing yourself what you are capable of when you take full responsibility. And that kind of confidence cannot be given to you. It must be earned. So let me ask you again, who are you becoming through this process? Are you becoming stronger, more disciplined, more focused? Or are you becoming discouraged, distracted, and inconsistent? Because that choice is yours every single day. Meanwhile, once you stop waiting for validation, you are confronted with a deeper question. If not people, then where does my strength come from? Because it is one thing to let go of dependence on people, but it is another thing to replace that dependence with the right source. This is where many people struggle. They try to be strong on their own. They say, I don't need anyone, and they turn independence into isolation. But that is not the answer. You were never designed to rely on people for your strength, but you were also never designed to carry your life alone. There is a difference between depending on people and depending on God. And until you understand that difference, you will either be broken by people or exhausted by yourself. Let me ask you something. When everything around you is uncertain, where do you run to? When support is missing, when encouragement is silent, when it feels like nobody understands your journey, what sustains you? Because the truth is, there will be moments in your life where human support will fail. Not because people are evil, but because they are limited. They cannot always be there. They cannot always understand. They cannot always carry what you are going through. And if your strength is tied to people, you will rise and fall based on their presence. But there is a kind of strength that does not fluctuate with human behavior. There is a source that does not dry up when people withdraw. There is a help that does not fail when others cannot show up. And that source is God. The Bible says in Psalm chapter 121, verse 1 to 2, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord which made heaven and earth. Notice what the writer is doing. He is not looking around. He is looking up. He is not depending on what is beside him. He is depending on what is above him. My help comes from the Lord. Not from people. Not from connections, not from applause, from the Lord. And this is the shift you must make if you are going to win in life without support. You must move your dependence from people to God. Because when your help is rooted in God, it is no longer limited by human availability. Now hear this deeply. When people fail you, it does not mean help has failed. It simply means your source is being redirected. Because sometimes God will allow human support to be removed so that you can discover divine strength. If people were always there, you might never learn to lean on God. If people always showed up, you might never seek God deeply. So what does God do? He allows a season where it feels like everything external is quiet so that internal can be awakened. And that is where real strength is built, not in public moments, but in private battles. Let's be honest, the strongest parts of you were not formed when everything was easy. They were formed in moments when you had no choice but to keep going. When you cried and still stood up. When you were confused and still moved forward. When you felt alone but something inside you refused to give up. That something is not just willpower. That is the strength that comes from God. Because there is a strength you can manufacture and there is a strength that is supplied. And the one that comes from God sustains you in ways nothing else can. That is why the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. Yes, I will uphold you with the right hand of my righteousness. Listen to the language of God. I am with you, but I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. That means even when you feel like you are falling apart, there is a hand holding you together. Even when you feel like you cannot go on, there is a strength being supplied to you. But here is the key. You must learn to access that strength. Because it is one thing for God to be your source, it is another thing for you to consciously depend on Him. And this is where the private life becomes powerful. So because strength is built in private battles, not when people are watching, not when people are clapping, but in those quiet moments when it's just you and God, when you are praying and it feels like nothing is changing, but something inside you is being strengthened. When you are holding on to His word even when your reality is shaking, and slowly your faith becomes stronger than your fear. When you are learning to trust Him without physical evidence, and that trust begins to stabilize your mind, your emotions, your decisions, that is where real strength is formed. And when you come out of those private battles, you carry something different. You carry a confidence that is not loud but unshakable. You carry a peace that does not make sense but cannot be broken. You carry a strength that does not depend on people but is sustained by God. And that is the kind of strength you need to win in life without support. Because now, even if people are absent, you are not empty. Even if people are silent, you are not weak. Even if people fail, you are still standing. Because your source has changed. You are no longer looking around for strength. You are looking up. Now that you have discovered where your true strength comes from, there is something else you must protect, because even with strength, if you lose sight of what you are pursuing, you can still drift. Let me show you how to hold on to your vision, even when no one else sees it. Moreover, now that you have discovered where your strength comes from, the next battle is not about people, it is about vision. Because you can be strong, but if you lose sight of where you are going, you will still wander. Strength gives you the ability to move, but vision gives your movement direction. And this is where many people quietly lose their way. Not because they are weak, but because they start doubting what they once saw clearly. Let me ask you something. What do you do when you can see something so strongly inside you, but nobody else around you can see it? When you carry a picture of a future that nobody understands, when what God has shown you does not match what your environment is showing you, because that is one of the most difficult places to stand. The space between what you see and what others believe. And if you are not careful, the absence of agreement will begin to weaken your conviction. You will start questioning yourself. You will start adjusting your vision to make others comfortable. You will start shrinking something that was never meant to be small. But hear this clearly. Vision is personal before it becomes public. What God shows you is not meant for everybody at the beginning. It is first entrusted to you, not to a group, not to a crowd, not to your environment, to you. And the reason is simple. If everyone could see it immediately, it would not require faith. There is a phase where your vision will look unrealistic to others. It will sound too big, too different, too unusual. People will try to interpret it based on their limitations. They will measure it with their experience. They will advise you to reduce it so it fits into what they understand. But you must be careful not to trade revelation for acceptance, because the moment you start adjusting what God showed you just to gain people's approval, you begin to lose the very thing that makes your assignment unique. Let me take you back to Scripture, because this principle is powerful. In Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2-3, the Bible says, "Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come."